Yes, everybody. Welcome back to Thread Manchester. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everybody's recovered from that real poor performance and result yesterday at Anfield. I know it was a very tough game, very tough game to watch, very tough result to take. But today I'm going to try and get into some analysis of why Manchester United struggled in that game yesterday. I'm not going to talk about too much that happened after the second goal or even after the first goal, to be honest with you. I want to focus on the first half, what went right, what went wrong, because I think after that second, third goal, I think you're away from football analysis. You're sort of more into the emotional, the heart, the mind, that sort of state. So yes, guys, as always, please do subscribe if you're new. Please do like if you enjoy, and let's get into it. So in the first half, I would recommend everybody to rewatch this game, by the way. Rewatch the first half at least if you haven't already, because I felt a lot better after watching the first half. Right, so Manchester United in the first half went to Anfield. We weathered a bit of a storm, as every team probably normally does at Anfield. First 10 or 15 minutes, Liverpool had a few good moments, but we managed to defend well. A few good interceptions, good tackles, very little good possession, but we weathered it well. We had a couple of chances in the first half. Anthony's chance that was saved, and then we obviously had the Dalot cross to Bruno Fernandes, who headed it just wide. And then we obviously had the Luke Shaw brilliant cross in towards Rashford, who hit it first time straight into the keeper. So Liverpool obviously had that chance through Núñez, but it was a great block by Martinez. So in the first half, Manchester United actually had the better chances, and that is not even up for debate. Manchester United were probably just a better team in the first half, which is a really promising sign going to Anfield, right? Now, there was a lot of good that happened in that first half of Manchester United. So we had some good sort of approach play at times. Weghorst in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes was dropping into some nice pockets, as he always does, winning fouls, linking play. Anthony had a few efforts on goal. As I said, we had those two chances through Bruno and Rashford, and generally we were competing. So when you go to Anfield, you know you're going to be put under a lot of pressure. Even though Liverpool's counter-pressing stats, etc., they've gone down this season, we obviously know going to Anfield, going to play Liverpool, they are going to come and press high. They're going to come with lots of energy and intensity, right? So we knew we're going to have to fight for the duels. We're going to have to be up for it. We know with this system that Erik ten Hag plays, going man for man in midfield, we need to be aggressive. We need to be intense. We need to win our duels. And in the first half, we did a good job of that. So let's talk about maybe something more specific about this first half. So I want to talk about Manchester United's press. So I'm going to go through my Twitter analysis that I've done. So please do check out this on Twitter, by the way. The link is in the bio. So you'll see this analysis that's done on Twitter. I'm doing it in this form just because it's easier for me with everything all in one place this time, rather than showing you like slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. So that's why I'm showing it on this particular, so on Twitter instead of on the slides. But let's have a look. Okay, so against Liverpool, Manchester United, we know this season we've seen Manchester United set up in very different ways out of possession. So we know in a few wins we've had this season against the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Southampton, and Leicester, in those 4 games we had where we won 4 in a row after losing against Brentford and Brighton. We knew in those 4 games that we won after, we played more of a mid-block. We had McTominay and Eriksen in midfield. We played often with Elanga or Sancho as the wide players, and Anthony as well. We had hard-working wide players. We were playing in a mid-block, nice and compact, not pressing too high. And then obviously we've lost Christian Eriksen now through injury. Obviously we lost him quite a long time ago now, but we've lost Christian Eriksen. We've got Fred in the team now. How are Manchester United going to react to losing Christian Eriksen? We can't really control games as well as we could before. We've got a lot of players in the squad that are very direct, are very They're best suited to transitions. So what Manchester United have done in recent games and against Liverpool, they've gone man for man in midfield, often without Weghorst dropping into the number 10, so playing Casemiro, Fred, and Weghorst as a midfield three. And then using a hybrid pressing system. So by that, we'll take a look at what that means now. So yeah, as I said, we adopt the hybrid pressing system using a man-to-man, going man-to-man on the opposition midfield. Why do we do this? Because if you go man-to-man in midfield, you know whenever the opposition midfield player has the ball, whichever midfield player it is, you've always got a Manchester United midfield player closing in on him. So you're maximising your chance of creating individual battles, and if you win your individual battles, then you're more likely to win back possession and then counter-attack. The thing with Manchester United is they've got three, especially Casemiro, Fred, and Weghorst, three very, very tenacious players. So three very tenacious players who are all very good out of possession, really, who work hard, they're strong. Casemiro and Weghorst are strong. You know, Fred's got intensity, he's got aggression. So this is why we do it, right? Also, we don't have all the right profiles right now. We haven't got maybe the right goalkeeper we need. We haven't got the right midfield player we need next to Casemiro. We haven't got the right striker we need. All of these issues. So we have to change the way Ten Hag has to change the way he wants to play. Really, he's got to change a few principles. So he's got to change from his renowned principles, right? So with this hybrid pressing system, I'm going to talk about what that means now, why it could be a problem. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about here is Andy Robertson. So many times during this game, we saw Alisson, who we know is very, very good with his distribution. Normally, we know that Alisson can find those passes, those clip passes, those lofted passes out to the fullbacks, right? So there's many, many examples of Alisson. You can see here in this first image, the ball's just left his foot. In this second image, it's in the air and he's looking towards Robertson, right? So he's looking for that lofted pass out to the fullback. Now, the issue is with Manchester United is with this hybrid pressing system, and I'm going to explain what it all means in a moment. But the issue is with this hybrid pressing system is that both of our wide players, so whether it's Rashford and Antony, Rashford and Sancho, Garnacho and Antony, Garnacho and Rashford, this time it was Bruno on the left and Antony on the right. So Bruno started on the left to try to prevent Alexander-Arnold having as much influence on the game due to Bruno's work rate. And we know that Rashford doesn't track back too well, doesn't track the opposition fullback too well. So we knew that we wanted Rashford at number 9 for his threat in behind, right? Now, the thing is, when you do play a hybrid pressing system, so it's Bruno and Antony in this case, those two wide players, if we're doing a hybrid pressing system, those two wide players have got the task of dealing with the respective centre-backs on both sides and the respective full-backs on both sides. So let's take a look into this in a little bit more depth. So, as I said here, it's important to know that Antony is playing a hybrid pressing role. So what I mean by that is Antony has always got to decide what he wants to do. So you've got the left centre-back, Van Dijk. You've got the left-back, Robertson. Which one? Is he going to go and press into Van Dijk? If so, that's going to leave space for Robertson. Is he going to sit off Van Dijk, let Van Dijk have the ball, but protect the space by Robertson? You know, Van Dijk can carry the ball forward, might be able to find another player in space, but at least Robertson doesn't get the ball. So he's got a decision to make. Now, I want to talk about this, and I've shown it here on a diagram. So Bruno Fernandes and Antony, hybrid pressing roles. So they have the task of pressing both centre-back and full-back. So they have that particular role. They're not going man-to-man in particular. You know, if the ball goes out, let's say to the number 2 here, so the ball goes out to the number 2, Rashford will obviously be on the goalkeeper. The ball goes up to the number 2 and Antony will press the number 2. Or Rashford can obviously go in for the number 2 and Antony can press the fullback. But that obviously then leaves space on the other side. The number 2 there could then play sort of a switch of play over to the number 5 or the number 4. And then Bruno's left 2v1. So you can see whatever scenario here, Antony and Bruno have got almost a lose-lose situation. unless they get help from the midfield players or our fullbacks, they're always 2v1. They're always 2v1. So what does that mean? That actually means that Liverpool have always got a way out of the press unless we have our fullbacks jumping on, right? So that's always the issue that we have here. Now, I want to show an example of this. So when I talk about the fullbacks jumping on, I'm talking about, so you see in this second example here, Dalot advancing past the number 7 to get on the number 3, and Shaw, the number 23, going past number 11, taking a risk and going and trying jumping in on number 4 there for the opposition, right? So that's what I mean by our fullbacks jumping on. Now, there's lots of consequences. There's lots of trade-offs when you play football in general. If you go to man mark one player, you go to press one player, you then obviously leave more space for another player. We know this. There's always trade-offs. So let's have a look at when Manchester United did well. So there were some times in this game where Alisson looked for that pass. So if you look at this diagram here, number 1, Alisson's got the ball. Don't worry about all the numbers. They don't matter. But let's say Alisson does go out to try and play that ball out to number 3, Robertson. Yeah, so we're in this clip here. Anthony's got on number 2. Rashford's closed the keeper down. Bruno's gone on number 5. So their number 1, their goalkeeper, is trying to play that clip lofted pass out to the number 3. So Andy Robertson, let's say. What do we now need to do as a team? Well, we've got to make a decision. Are we going to leave Robertson free? If Anthony, who it's quite impossible when you just press the left centre back, if we rely on Anthony to try and get back to the left back, that's very, very unlikely, especially with the engine that Robertson has. So Diogo Dalot has to make a choice here. The midfield players can't go out to press Robertson because they're already marking Liverpool's midfield players. So Dalot, in this example, comes out to Robertson, takes a risk. He's obviously going to leave whatever's behind him. So I think it was Nunes at the time. He's obviously going to leave Nunes free. So if Dalot misjudges it, and Robertson gets some space and time, he can then find Nunes. One of our centre-backs might have come out to mark Nunes. That might leave space for other players, right? But in this scenario, Dalot wins the ball. So he wins the header, goes out for a throw. Okay? So that shows an example there of a successfully the fullbacks pushing up onto the opposition fullback. So Dalot and Shaw, this time it's Dalot pushing onto the Liverpool fullback, and the hybrid pressing system. Okay, it's all good. We've got our fullbacks jumping up, so we've dealt with the situation. Okay. Let's take a look at some more examples. This is another example from the 18th minute. It happens again. It goes out to Robertson. This time, Fred has actually vacated the space. So this is obviously very, very dangerous. He was supposed to be marking, I think it was Henderson. He's vacated his space, but at least he's put Robertson under some pressure. He makes it awkward, and Dalot anticipates it, and he wins the header again and deals with it. So Manchester United here, again, successful. They regain possession through this hybrid pressing system. Diogo Dalot, the main reason why we do win possession back is because our fullback jumps up and is aggressive. Okay? Another time, Alisson clips it out. I think it might have been Van Dijk or Alisson clips it out towards Trent Alexander-Arnold. And this time it's Luke Shaw. So you might not be able to see the ball. It's a bit difficult to see. But Luke Shaw, basically, you can see there's 1 second between the images. You can see with Luke Shaw's body shape that he's just headed the ball. So in the first image, you can see by the way his body is, he's headed the ball, and now he's standing more straight. He heads the ball, and Manchester United regain possession. Okay, so you've got lots of examples there of Manchester United playing a hybrid pressing system where both of our wide players push onto the opposition centre-back. Then that leaves the opposition fullbacks free unless our fullbacks jump up and deal with it. Brilliant. Okay, sorted. Now, you might be thinking, well, Charlie, what happens if we misjudge this? So what happens if Dalot, Shaw, or Malacia, Wan-Bissaka, whoever's playing at fullback, what happens if they misjudge that? They jump out onto the opposition fullback, but they misjudge the flight of the ball, or they slip, or they go to press and they completely the opposition player completely rings around them and gets past them. What happens then? Well, then obviously that player advances, And then we're obviously in a bad situation defensively where our centre-backs have got to defend probably the channels. So we've seen a lot this season, Lisandro Martinez struggling to defend in the channels, Varane at times as well. Does Eric Ten Hag not trust his centre-backs in the channels? Possibly. I'm not fully sure, but we've seen a few examples this season of particularly Martinez a bit weak in the channels. So against Jesus, we saw it. We saw it against Salah in this game. And maybe Eric Ten Hag doesn't want to isolate his centre-backs in the channels. He also knows that his goalkeeper isn't going to come out and sweep as often. So if that ball does get past Dalot or does get past Shaw, they misjudge it, and they're out of play now. They're out of the game. We know as a team that we're not at the stage where we can push up into a high line and everybody pushes up the pitch and we can catch the other team offside, or if the ball does go in behind, we've got the recovery pace necessary or the awareness necessary or the goalkeeper sweeping necessary to deal with the attack, right? So I think Eric Ten Hag is slightly worried at this moment in time to play. Although we've seen the fullbacks jumping up one or two times, we're not seeing it every single time. So there's a few examples in the game as well where Shaw and Dalot don't push up well enough. And we're going to see an example here for Liverpool's first goal. And if the fullbacks don't push up well enough and are not brave enough, then the issues stem. You're caught in sort of two minds. It's a bit of a half-hearted approach. And then obviously that then leads to the domino effect. So you just eventually get outnumbered and the chances of you conceding a massive chance increase. Okay. So I don't think Eric Ten Hag, whether it's he doesn't want to isolate his centre-backs in the channels or isolate De Gea having to make decisions to come out for things, or whether he his players aren't brave enough and he's actually telling these fullbacks to push up and they're not doing so, I'm not sure. But in this particular game, we can only analyse from this 90 minutes today. In this particular game, we saw a bit of both. So sometimes Shaw and Dalot being really aggressive and pushing up, other times not. We've seen many examples from this season where we haven't pushed up and it's led to an easy way out the press. So obviously, if Shaw and Dalot don't push up, going back to this little scenario here, if Shaw and Dalot don't push up, that obviously then leaves number 3 or number 4 in this image with a lofted or clip pass out to the fullback. That then leaves them space to move into, and basically the opposition by press are, in inverted commas, press very, very easily. So they take 3 players out of the game, maybe even 4 players out of the game. And now you've got 2v1 situations with fullback and wide player up against one of our fullbacks, right? So it's a massive, massive issue if you do not solve the issue by either dragging a midfield player out to that zone or dragging a fullback up to that zone, so vertically and horizontally. So obviously you can get one of our midfield players horizontally, shift over to the fullback, deal with it, or you can get one of our fullbacks vertically, push up the pitch, push up and stop their fullback receiving the ball easily, put them under pressure. But as I said, if you've got man-to-man in midfield, they've already got roles to an extent, our 3 midfield players. They've already got duties and they've got men they need to mark and stick with. They can't necessarily leave those men and then push out to the fullback too often, because that's obviously going to lend the midfield players in more space, right? Just a sip of the tea there. So we know this can be problematic. And if Manchester United, if their players are not fully at it, we talk about individual duels, very, very man-to-man based. We've seen with Leeds United gone down the years in the Premier League. Leeds United, the intensity, the pressure they play at. If you've got a few players off it in a man-to-man system, you're in big, big trouble. What else causes you big problems in a man-to-man system? A roaming player. So if you've got a player like Cody Gakpo in this game who is given a roaming role in between the lines, a false 9 role, a player who can roam in and around Manchester United's between that sort of midfield and defence area, you've got massive, massive issues. As I said before, you've got man-to-man in midfield. If you've got a roaming false 9, as you guys can probably guess, you're then creating a 4-3-3, right? So you've got Gakpo, Henderson, Elliott and Fabinho up against Weghorst, Fred, and Casemiro. So you've got 4v3 there. You've got numerical superiority with their false nine dropping into pockets. Okay. So this was a big issue. So in this particular example, just before halftime, we were doing really, really well. We were getting this right more times than we were getting it wrong, by the way. We were doing really, really well with this hybrid pressing. Considering you're at Anfield, I'm maybe being a bit optimistic, but I thought we were doing okay with it. I thought we were getting it right more than we were getting it wrong. We were not allowing Liverpool a great deal of time on the ball. We were doing okay. And then this happens. So this is Liverpool's first goal. So the ball gets sprayed out. You can see the ball here is in action. It's going towards the bottom left of the picture. So it's going towards Robertson. So it goes towards Robertson, as you can see. And Diogo Dalot comes out. Okay, so we've talked about this. United are not pressing high, but we're in sort of a mid-block situation here. But Dalot goes out to deal with Robertson, right? However, if you look at Cody Gakpo in the bottom picture there, you can see we talked about this sort of the roaming role he had. Nobody is picking up Cody Gakpo here because he's just roaming between the lines. Nunes is occupying Varane and Martinez. Salah's occupying Shaw. Elliott's occupying Casemiro. Fred has obviously got Henderson behind him, but Fred knows he's marking Henderson, but Fred knows, well, hang on a minute, Henderson's not the biggest threat here. I've got to deal with Gakpo. So Fred has got to do something here. Dalot's gone out to Robertson, and Fred thinks, well, I've got to trust Dalot to deal with Robertson, but also I've got to think, just in case he doesn't deal with Robertson, I've got to track Gakpo. But then obviously that leaves Fred in this situation where he isn't comfortable. So our right back ends up in a midfield, a position that a midfielder should normally be in, and our midfield player ends up in a right back position, right? So that's where we end up with here. We end up with, because we've gone man to man, and because we've got the hybrid pressing system, this situation wouldn't happen if Dalot deals with Robertson. But as you can see here, Dalot doesn't get tight enough to Robertson. He doesn't deal with the situation. And you'll see in this next picture here, you see Dalot still so far away from Robertson. He's got to engage with him. He's got to get tighter to him. And he doesn't. So this is the issue when you play with a hybrid pressing system. It's not even, you can actually take the hybrid pressing system factor away from this just one duel. It's a duel at Anfield. Manchester United have survived 42 minutes and 20 seconds, something like that. They've been aggressive. They've been intense. We've stopped Liverpool. We've been really aggressive. We've dealt with them really, really well. We've probably had the best chances of the game. And then we just let ourselves down just before halftime because our right back doesn't get tight enough. And then Fred is in an unnatural position that he's not used to. Obviously, when you're a left footer on the right side, all different angles, your body shape, everything's different. And then Fred sort of doesn't anticipate the space. He's in the wrong position. And Gakpo gets in behind. Varane doesn't deal with it, and it's a goal, right? But that all comes from Manchester United with this the hybrid pressing system. Diogo Dalot not being aggressive enough on Robertson. Okay, so it's extremely, extremely important when you do send our fullbacks up to deal with the opposition fullbacks that you engage. Even if you give a foul away, engage. Just engage. You either give a foul away, you win the ball back, or you just keep the player away from the goal. Okay, and we didn't do it well enough. So as I said, we were having problems with Gakpo's movement. Our three men in midfield were already occupied. This left us with a massive, massive problem of 4v3s. And as I've said here, there's a lot more that happened after this first goal. I don't want to go into it too much. I think it's to do with a lack of effort, a lack of work rate, a lack of mentality, poor defensive errors, really, really poor individual mistakes and decision making. There's a lot to talk about in terms of what happened after Manchester United conceding that first goal, but I can't really analyze that too much because it's very, very difficult to analyze when you start losing 3s and 4s and 5s. It's not so much about the tactical elements. It's about mental fatigue, Anfield, the way it can suck you up as a player. So yeah, there's a lot more to talk about, but the main thing to talk about here with the hybrid pressing system and the system we've been playing under Erik ten Hag is this system can cause big problems if the opposition's goalkeeper has got good distribution and can clip passes out to the fullbacks. It can also cause problems if we lose too many individual duels and if our fullbacks do not jump up on the opposition fullbacks quickly enough. If you're playing with this particular Erik ten Hag man-to-man in midfield hybrid pressing system, it would be different if you're adopting a different system, the hybrid pressing system, but in a different way, at a different club. But for us, the way we're going at the moment, Manchester United have got to make a decision. Erik ten Hag has got to make a decision here about what he wants to do with us out of possession. Okay. Liverpool exploited it to the max because of their intensity, their aggression. Gakpo is a free roamer. Elliott was really, really clever with his movement. How direct the Liverpool players are, how good they are on the counter in transitions, how good the fullbacks are creative-wise. Liverpool exploited it particularly well, and there won't be many teams that will be able to do this to us in terms of out of possession, to be able to cause us this many problems with the way that we play out of possession, right? But Erik ten Hag is going to have to look at this, and he's going to have to realise that if we do play this system, this hybrid pressing system, against a top team again, we've got to make sure that we deal with the opposition fullbacks somehow or some way. We've got to deal with those clip passes out to the fullbacks because it's too easy of an outlet out to those fullbacks, especially if they're the two creative players. We know Liverpool play with two fullbacks who are basically attacking midfield players in terms of what they bring in terms of their end product. They're brilliant in terms of their end product. Maybe they haven't been so good this season, but we know Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are the creative for this Liverpool team. So to allow them to allow simple and easy passes, although they're not easy, for a goalkeeper like Alisson, those passes are routine. He does them every single time, although it might not be easy for us to look. Our goalkeeper doesn't do that all the time. It's a routine thing that Alisson does, and it's too easy from our perspective to allow those clip passes out to the fullbacks time and time again and not deal with it. In this game, as I said, in the first half, there were a few times we allowed them to do it, but we mostly did okay with it. It was just that we got punished for not doing okay with it on one occasion. And after that goal, we capitulated. So yes, guys, I really, really appreciate any comments, any thoughts on this video. I hope it was informative. Erik ten Hag's got some decision making to do going forward, whether he continues with this, whether he puts extra emphasis on the fullbacks jumping up. Does he trust the centre-backs in transition? We'll see. Or will he go back to the mid-block that we used for a lot of games earlier on in the season? Let's see what Erik ten Hag does. I'll be really, really thrilled to see how he reacts to this. But yes, guys, I really, really appreciate all the support as always. Please do like the video if you enjoyed. Please do subscribe if you're new. Get involved in the comments. I'm sorry it wasn't a really, really positive video. I hope it was still informative and analytical for you guys. I appreciate all the support recently. You can see the link to my Twitter analysis in my bio. In the description if you'd like to see that as well. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking at 100 miles an hour. I always feel like I'm doing this, but there's just so many elements to get in, and I don't want to make the video too long. But I know it's been about half an hour, but really appreciate it, guys. Take care. I'll be back after the Real Betis game. See you guys.